Woo.
Whoa. Well, welcome to Lemons Laughing. I am Melissa.
There's
You
only
don't
three of
usu-
us today, though.
Yeah, you don't usually hear me first. It's usually Amanda.
Mhm.
And so it's just today, it's Penny and Drusilla and myself. And we really miss Morgan, and we really miss Amanda. And they're
Yeah.
doing their thing. And we just send both of them a lot of love and support.
Mhm.
So here we are. So let's get real. So we all have stories and stories about who we are, what we're identified with, what's happened to us, what we think is possible, what we don't think is possible. And sometimes these stories can comfort us. But if we just keep going back to them and we keep relying on them, we keep talking about them, they can also trap us. So today we're asking, what happens when we rise above these stories? And when is being seen and seeing like up through these stories, people see you through these stories, when is that no longer enough? And when do we step into the real power of who we are?
Mm,
Mm.
great questions, Melissa.
Mhm.
You're so right. We've all had those moments where our stories define us. If we think back, especially our teenage years and the 20s, when, you know, we're just basically living the stories that we told ourselves. Um, so in today's conversation is about rising above those old narratives, about shifting from survival to thriving, from this is what happened to me to this is what I'm creating now in our powerful beings. You know, we're going to explore how to hold our past with compassion and not let it dictate our future.
Mhm.
And talk a little bit about how to step into our full expression, our truth, and discover our gifts and our divine badassery at the five
That's
limitless
for you,
are.
Amanda.
So if you've ever felt stuck in your story, and haven't realized is that that's what you're doing, you might want to stay tuned because we're gonna explore this and kind of talk about some tools and ways that we can move beyond our stories today.
Wow, Drusilla, I just love that we're doing this episode because I have
I
a
know.
great example. I really have a really amazing, great example. And so I am happy to go first with an example.
Do it.
So I've been doing this work with Catherine Woodward Thomas, and there are the most freaking amazing coaches that are attracted to her work, which is probably why I was attracted because I'm an amazing coach. Okay, I'm just going to say
You
that
are.
right there.
That's a story so you can stick to. Okay.
Well, but here's
Yes.
where this whole episode comes into play for me. So the very first training class I took with Catherine, it was Calling in the One. I was becoming a Calling in the One coach, or being certified as a Calling in the One coach. And the very first session, knew nobody. I was a little bit out of my comfort zone, but I didn't think had to be that far out of my comfort zone. But then she had us all go around and introduce ourselves. I don't know, there was 60 or 70 people. And one after another is like, oh my gosh, I'm changing the world in this way. I'm doing this in the world. I've created this nonprofit. I'm doing this. And I'm like going, holy shit, I don't belong here. This is not, I'm a poor little girl from a farm in North Dakota. I've had a bad life, But I mean, I haven't. I mean, I have a lot of really great stuff that I've done. But I went so quickly into that story about, I don't belong here. These women are freaking amazing. Who do I think I am to be part of this? I haven't started a nonprofit. I haven't done this. I don't even really have a coaching practice except in our company. So what qualifies me to be here? And I actually even I really was so grateful to be part of the group when I did my introduction, but it's like it brought me to tears to be part of such a high vibration. It was almost I couldn't hold it. And if I didn't have a lot of the training and the work that I've done, I don't know that I would have been able to hold it. I would have keep thinking, oh, Penny, you don't belong here. My ego would have come up and said, you better quit because these women are way above you. And who do you think you are? And so if I would have stayed in that story, I mean, I have to just say now I started my third training with her. And yesterday we did some practicum coaching with each other. And I just went for it and I had fun and it was playful and I hit the nail on the head. I know I hit the nail on the head. And so it's all in my head. It's all in
Mm-hmm.
my head. So it's my stinking thinking that takes me out of the game. And so I just, yeah, that's just really beautiful for me to go full circle and remember that first day and now just
Mm-hmm.
yesterday what occurred. So
I love
yeah,
that story, Penny.
That's
yeah,
great.
yeah.
I do have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So, in that moment, when it came time for you, did you stay in the story and play yourself down? Or did you try to create a bigger story to become like everybody else in the room?
It wasn't that I
Mm,
tried to create a bigger story. I just told the truth. Like I
mm,
told my story. And I did say, wow, I feel so honored to be in everybody's presence. I feel like, and I did say, I feel like everybody is doing these amazing things in the world. And I'm not quite sure how I fit in. I did say that, but
Mhm.
I didn't I don't think that I made myself small, but I didn't make myself big either. I just kind of,
Mhm.
me, what you get is what you see is pretty much what you get mostly.
that's really interesting, Penny. And the question was interesting. Like, I think even if you make yourself bigger, it's still, or your story bigger, or you make yourself important in your own head, let's say, that's still kind of off track. Like, it's the authenticity. It's the what we've talked about recently in a couple episodes of like dropping the masks, having the fear and showing up anyways, and being authentic, even if you're scared.
Well, and you know what I realized too, Melissa, as I was judging myself as not good enough or unworthy. That's my my um,
Story.
yeah, it's my story. That's my story. I want to say
Yes.
it's my initial wound where as a child, I made that up somewhere because of what was going on. I minimize what I realize that I minimize frequently what I've accomplished in my life
Yes.
because I judge it as not good enough. And
Yes.
so I realized, hold it. I've done some pretty amazing things too. And so I think, but it didn't happen in that class. I played small pretty much the whole time because I felt intimidated by everything that everybody else had done. And so it's taken me over a year, maybe almost two, to come out of that and to realize that I frickin' am just as good as everybody else. And we all put on our pants the same way and we all poop and pee. And so, you know,
Yes. I I think that's also a little human nature because I've heard it from everyone that I know. I just can't talk about myself. I just can't, toot my own horn, all that kind of stuff, which is a story as well. Like
mhm.
but still, I think it's easier to talk about someone else's, you know, gifts than your own. Um, yeah. Drusilla, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say I guess I just answered my own question before I thought about what I was going to say, but I was saying to myself that I found it really interesting that it takes being on, at least for me, and it sounds like for you, Penny, and you too, Melissa, being on the spiritual journey to know that and to rise above it. But then I thought about the book that um, oh my gosh, Wayne Dyer wrote, that there's a spiritual solution to every problem.
Mm.
And when I came across that book, I guess maybe 20 years ago, I like stopped in my tracks, like, oh my God, you mean seriously, like all of my problems, like every problem in the world. But yeah, that answers my own question.
Yeah.
What I was thinking about. So, how do you become aware of the stories that you're telling yourself? Because until you become aware, then you can't rise above it, right? So, for you, Penny, since it was your story, did you realize in the moment that it was a story, or did you just think that, oh my God, I'm in this place of fear again? because I'm intimidated by all of these women. I think that's what I thought all the years of my, just working in corporate and being around executives and thinking, oh my God, these people are way up there and I'm way down here. I never thought it in terms of a story that was rooted in my childhood.
That's a really great question, Drusilla. Did I realize in the moment that it was a story, or did I just think, I was intimidated because they were better than me as I perceived it? Well, I think, like you just said, the Wayne Dyer quote, there's a spiritual solution to all my problems. I think I did in the moment realize that I was in this old, tired story, but I couldn't get myself completely out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know if that's answering your question, but that's kind of what I felt. It's like I knew it wasn't true, but I still believed it, that it was true, that I am not as good or as worthy as these other women that I was meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So it took me a while.
I also think, piggybacking on that, Penny, that when you do spiritual work, you kind of come out of the fishbowl. So when you're in the fishbowl and you're in your story, you don't even freaking know you're in the story.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so you need the breaks and you need the introspection and the awareness to be out of that fishbowl to see, oh, I'm in a story. I've created this story. And we're actually talking about this episode because I brought up to the group, I am so sick of telling the same story and I'm sick of using it as a crutch. Like, oh, I've always felt unworthy. And that's why I've X, Y, and Z. And I realized that it's time for me to move on from that story, because it became a trap. It became like something around my ankle holding me down rather than me being able to, okay, that happened. We're moved and not moving on like disregarding, but I don't have to keep telling that story and I don't have to keep coming. My truth does not have to come out of that story every time I speak. So, yeah, I think awareness has helped. And also, I think, like I was saying before, about like creating a bigger story, we've created other stories. I've created other stories, other identities that I thought I was going to live out of, right? And for me, that was just, again, another mask, another, because it's a mask I can wear in the world that we see in form. So um, I'm not a mom anymore. I run a business, and that makes me feel better about myself. And that's my story. And that's just about the world. That's really not that, like, really who I am, the person inside. So, um, yeah,
You
so I
know,
think the spiritual work keeps you coming back to your authenticity. Penny?
I love what you were just saying, Melissa, because I love to listen to Joel Osteen. I haven't done it for a while, but he uses this really great metaphor of the windshield and the rearview mirror. And it's really used to encourage us to focus on the future rather than the past. He says that the front windshield of the car is much bigger than the small rear view mirror because what's ahead of you is far more important than what's behind you. And the rear view mirror represents the past, your mistakes, your hurts, your regrets, your unworthiness, or whatever it is. And that holds you back if you focus on them too much. And so instead, he always urges us to let go of the past pain and failures and move forward to the bright future and new beginnings that await. And so, and he also always encourages his followers that the past does not define our future, and where we're going matters most, and our best days are still ahead of us. I just love it when he says that. But that when you were saying that, Melissa, that just reminded me of that metaphor because we too often we're focused so intently in that rearview mirror and we forget that, wow, what's in front of us. Yeah.
I also think that, your past has great information.
Sure does.
And I I don't think, like, there are spiritual teachers who say, don't even think, just move ahead. you don't even need to look at the old stories. But for me, they've been helpful. But I really am to like, it's a path now where I will use them to springboard me, but I will not be held back by them anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, harvest the learning from them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of trainers and coaches and spiritual teachers say that too, Melissa. And I think that I am finally ready to release the stories.
Yes.
Um, I think I am. I think I don't think I need them anymore, unless there's, of course, there are probably some that I haven't remembered that could be stuck in trauma in my mind and my body, that will come up one day. But I remember a time when I would wake up in the morning and remember my trauma on purpose, because then that told me what mask I had to put on for the day, right? How am I going to wake up
Great
and
point.
go up in the world? But now I don't need the stories. I don't want them. And if a story does come up, I acknowledge the story, but I don't acknowledge it as my truth anymore.
Right. That's
Yeah.
perfect.
It's really powerful, Drusilla. Yeah.
So I hope this doesn't take us up for some thinking about a story. And I think I shared a small video in our chat one day, but it was a story about a therapist was talking to a lady, and he was trying to get her to understand trauma and where it starts, because our stories usually come from some, whether it's small trauma, big trauma, I think that is irrelevant. It's just where we decide as a child or teen to create the story to help us cope with it, right? So he was saying to her, to give her an example, he said to her, she told him that her trauma started from an incident that happened with her where she was sexually assaulted as a child. And that's where her trauma started. So he said to her, so what happened after that? He said, did you tell your parents? And she said, no, because I felt embarrassed and that I would get blamed for it. And so he said, okay, if this happened to your child and she didn't come tell you, how would you feel? And she said, I would feel sad. And he said, why? Because I would feel like she must have felt lonely or afraid to come tell me. And he said, so don't you think that that's where the trauma started? It wasn't with the assault. It was that she had to already have fear of coming and being open to you as a parent. So the story started way before the trauma. The story attracted the trauma.
Wow.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective.
Isn't that a perspective?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, to the point of it, when we're thinking about the trauma, to maybe go even deeper than where we think the trauma happened.
Yeah. And for me, that's taken like years to really even get to that layer.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's not, I would love it to be a snap of my finger and I got it. Oh, that's what happened. That's where I'm responsible for this. But for me, it takes a little bit longer.
But if you think about it, we all know what we resist persists, right? So these behaviors and these stories and this trauma is persisting in our lives. It is showing up all the time. And so it's there. Most people just don't want to face it, right? And so I really, there's facing it, and you don't need to relive it, of course, but there is, unless you acknowledge it, it will keep coming back. And then you will be playing out the story, right?
Yes.
And so it's worth looking at the story, and then you will graduate to a point of letting the story go. Because I really do feel we We have some stories, and people will until they won't. And so we will use them until we won't use them. And right now we're talking about, what does it take to not have to use those stories? Like, where do you have to be? Uh, Um, like, I'm just sick of it. I'm just like, I'm
Yeah.
sick of it. And I know that courage is the tipping point into the higher vibrations. And so, courage to look at the stories, work maybe them out with some people. That's the point where you start the healing, where you can get to the point of letting that go.
Mhm.
Yes. I'll say a story that's showing up for me and that has always shown up, and it shows up in my marriage over and over again. And it's finally getting to where I think both my husband and I recognize it and shut it down immediately. It's the bad boy and good girl. Oh my
Mm.
goodness. And plus for me, and I'm sure for him too, it plays out in both perspectives that I'm the good girl, but it also plays out that men are bad. Men are always going to be dogs. Men are, and so it played out in my attraction to him and his attraction to me. And so we have to um, consciously be aware that we're playing into those stories. I
Yes.
mean, even just this morning, we had a conversation about um, him getting a phone call from an old friend who was calling to tell him someone passed away, right? And those old feelings just came up about our whole relationship of, him being a bad person, a bad man. And to your point, Melissa, we just had to get tired of
Mhm.
fighting it, you know, and um, and I'm just so grateful that he is open to having the deeper discussions.
Yeah.
It's not about the phone call, And I think we all do have to get to a point where we can just be true and authentic with ourselves, that my triggers are based on the stories. My trigger wasn't based on the phone call, it was based on the
Right.
stories. you know? That just, it just takes work. But when it's, what was the statement you said, Melissa? To
Um,
you.
what you
People
don't.
will until they won't.
Oh, that one.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
Mhm.
yes, yes. And yeah, so we just refuse to allow that to be our stories anymore.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Doesn't work for you anymore. You can't
Doesn't
be in
work.
a loving relationship
No,
anymore with that big block in the way.
no.
Right. And a lot of people face that, and they move on and they go to another relationship
Mhm.
carrying
Yes.
their same story into it.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And that's a good point, Melissa. I had that exact conversation. I'm like, I'm going to heal every single darn thing I can heal in this marriage while I'm in
Yes.
it, because I'd be darned if I'm going to go to another one and take the same stories,
Yeah.
and it's some people could say, well, yeah, you're going to move out of it, you could be by yourself, but there's a lot of stories that you won't be able to heal unless and
Yes.
they come up and they're being triggered, and it's intentional and
Mhm.
it's for the work, it's for the healing, and you
Hmm.
have to know that, accept it, and be okay with it.
Hmm.
Yeah, so our family is always our greatest teacher, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
So, but I
Yes.
want to circle back for a second, Drusilla. So, you're saying that when you got vulnerable and authentic with your husband, that's when you were able to get out of your story? Is that what you're
Yes.
saying? Okay.
Yes. And
So,
to take him out of his defense
Hmm.
mm,
as well, because he's not being accused anymore. Because I know
um,
that it's a story I'm telling myself. He's not a bad man.
mm,
He's not a bad person, you know. And I had to get out of my own way just to allow him to show up authentically
Hmm.
to me.
mhm.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And you
So,
had to see it.
so
Hmm.
this reminds me of a perfect example of how you can catch yourself, or how you can start seeing yourself. Like, if you're in a story and you don't even know you're in a story, how do you
Mhm.
then change the story, right?
Mhm.
Um, I think you can pay attention to your reactions. So
Mhm.
just watch yourself and see, if you're overreacting, or if you're like the phone call, you get a phone call, he gets a phone call about someone who's uh, talking about someone else who's passed away, and you have this like kind of inconsistent reaction to it or over the top reaction. That would be rubbing up against your story. And that would
Mhm.
be like a natural way to see, oh, okay, what is really going on here?
Mhm.
And that is then you start questioning yourself about how you're feeling about this situation. And I think that's a great opening to start watching yourself.
Okay, so I have a question. What if
Yes.
you notice that the other person's in their story and what you're doing is making them go into their story, but they don't realize they're in their story? What do you do as the person that's out there trying to just live your life?
Mhm.
That's your story, girl. I'm just here living my life and I'm a victim. And this guy keeps just going off because he's in his story. I don't know. It sounds like
Right.
it's a story.
Sounded like Melissa just pointed out the victim story.
Right. Right.
Oh
And the other thing is,
gosh.
like birds of a feather flock together and all those metaphors, like you're not going to be in a relationship with a person spilling a story all over you if you're not in your story. And somehow it's a marriage of a story. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree because that's why I explained the reciprocal side of he
Yes.
couldn't show up as his authentic self as long as I was in my story. I wouldn't
Yeah.
see it anyways. Maybe he
Right.
wasn't his authentic self. I was the one that made something of the phone call, you know? So
Right.
it's
Amazing.
always, in other words, it's always going to be your story. You can't go
Yeah.
to the other
Never.
person.
And
Yeah.
we know we're not going to change them and their story. We know it's at the level, this is a Course in Miracles stuff. It's at the level of the mind. So it's what you're
Yeah.
holding in your mind about whatever is happening around you where the problem is.
Mhm.
That's where the problem is. And
Yeah.
I think then we go through our Rolodex of which story is this triggering? I will pull out the victim card. Um, and then it just allows you to be a victim. So
Yeah.
it's just such a great place to start. Just watch yourself.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Watch yourself. Watch. Yeah. Be the, um, I want to say the observer, but I'm saying like the neutral observer of what's
Yeah,
going
the
on.
loving. Mhm.
Yeah.
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 And if you start to judge yourself about it, I'm sorry, that's another story because you're just not accepting who you really are at this point,
Uh-huh.
and you're having an expectation of who you should be.
Oh my
So
gosh. Wow. Today's going to be an interesting day.
yeah, just see
Yes.
how you react to people.
Yeah.
Mhm. And do
Uh,
it lovingly and do it
yeah.
without judgment. And I always
Hmm.
think too, like I I'm always feeling like I'm harder on myself than I am to other people. So like,
Hmm.
what would I tell Penny if Penny came to me and said, I'm really I see myself as I don't know, being a victim and wanting
Hmm.
my husband to be different. I would think, what would I tell Penny? I would tell Penny, you're so loving. Just just hammer down on that love, right? And just like if I were that's what I would tell myself based on
Hmm.
what I would tell
Hmm.
Penny.
Hmm.
Because usually, again, this other story of myself would be a perfectionist. You got to get this
Hmm.
right. You got to do it
Yep.
100%. It's not okay if you know, do it, not 100%, and I would be punishing.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
sometimes you got to treat yourself like you would your best friend.
Yeah, that's important. Definitely.
Hmm.
I love that hammer down on love.
I like that too.
Yeah, I'm writing that one down.
I got
Hammer
to
down
tell
on
Amanda
love.
that. That's an Amanda.
Yeah. Thank you, Amanda, for coming
Yeah.
through, Melissa.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah, Melissa, that was great. I feel like I just gave someone that exact advice about a situation she made in going back into a relationship with someone that she kind of should have known better. And now it's kind of exploded again. And we talked about the stories and why she probably went back into it. And her question was, how do I not tell myself the stories? And the advice was pretty similar to what you just shared. So I think it's the awareness first, and then not judging yourself for it. Well, understanding the guilt and the shame that comes along with the stories. Once you identify that it's a story, right, then you have to deal with the shame and guilt that goes with it, and just being gentle with yourself about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, here we are.
Here we are. We're hammering down on love and we're being neutral. I love that, Melissa. Oh.
Any more tools that we could share with our listeners?
I think also if you just start seeing yourself doing the same position, or listen to your words, like what is coming out of your mouth that is
Being
just on
impeccable with your words.
autopilot, like
Yeah.
autopilot. I am so unworthy. Blah, blah, blah. And again, not beating yourself up for what is coming out of your mouth, but just pay attention
Yeah.
to what you just access so on autopilot.
And look at your body language too. I mean, if you're like hunched over and you're probably in a story, but if you can open put your shoulders back, open your chest, take a couple deep breaths, plant your feet firmly on the ground, and then really pay attention to what's going on around you, and just know that your energy is flowing better, and you'll probably think clearer and be able to pause before you go into that old story again. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we are going to have a series for the next few episodes. What do we call it? Standing in your power?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about other ways, other observations, and other ways we can keep moving out of these old tired stories, the crutches we have, um, and most likely the victim stories. And somehow they're working for us, and so we keep. But are they really working for us?
They're not.
They aren't. They're not. They're trapping us.
Yes.
They're having us play small.
Keeping us small. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that'll be exciting to reveal that to our listeners next week. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like this is a wrap.
Penny Post-its.
Penny Post-its.
Please keep that story. I love that story, Penny. Love the Penny Post-it stories. Don't go changing, Penny.
Okay. Don't go changing to try to please me. And never worked before. Okay. So here is my first post-it. I love that there's a spiritual solution to all my problems. And by Wayne Dyer. I love that you mentioned that. Melissa, right? Or was it Drusilla? Drusilla mentioned it. Oh my God. I should write names on them when you guys say them. And then I love, Melissa, when you said to use the old story as a springboard to the future, like harvest the learning and then move on, man. So you don't repeat that old story. And I mean, I have a lot today because there was so much good stuff. What we resist persists, and people will until they won't. That was powerful. And when you were sharing, Drusilla, your story about how you transformed out of the story, it was that authenticity and vulnerability that can take you out of the story. If you're just really authentic and vulnerable around what's going on, and be the neutral observer, and then hammer down on love. I love that one. Well, thank you everyone for joining us for another amazing episode of Five Lemons Laughing. Remember, our stories or the stories we carry may have shaped us, but they don't define the limitless, radiant beings that we truly are. So when we rise beyond being seen and step fully into our power of who we are, our truth, our gifts, our divine badassery, we open the door to really creating a future without limits, rooted in compassion and courage. So let's look through the windshield versus the rear view mirror. And let's move forward, move beyond our past with love. Just harvest the learning and move on. And yeah, our highest expression is always waiting on the other side of our old stories, those old tired stories that we talked about. So keep laughing, keep rising, and remember that your transformation is our greatest joy. And we can't wait to connect with you again next week. So have a really beautiful rest of your day and week, and we'll see you on the flip side.
Bye.
Bye-bye.